Hey everybody, I want to talk about a product and platform that I absolutely love and our latest sponsor, Interseller, the prospecting and outreach platform of choice for recruiters and sellers. Whether you're doubling down on business development or recruiting talent, Interseller does all the heavy lifting of finding contact data, automating the email and follow-up process, and syncs all that rich data into 20 plus CRM and ATS platforms. Reach out now and get going on a 2-week free trial and let them know you heard about it from Adam on the podcast today. Check out the link on the website. Appreciate it.
Welcome to the podcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host, Adam Posner.
Hello, everybody. It is Monday. It is, I think, the 28th of March, the longest month ever. We're here. I think January was only the longer month ever. But welcome back to the podcast live. I am thrilled to welcome my guest today to a very special NFT Mythbusters episode. I've been talking about it a lot the last couple of weeks. We launched a new division, Kevin Logan and I, who I'm going to bring on in a second here, focus on all things Web3 recruiting. So what better time than now? So let's bring them on board here. Here we go. Let's start with the ladies first. Here comes Heather Parady. Heather, what's happening?
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast live. And unfortunately, everybody, Rich Cardona had an appointment that he had to go to. So we're going to get the much better half of the dynamic duo of NFT for newbies. Heather, hang with me 1 second here. Let's bring on my dude, my go-to, my OG when it comes to all things Web3, Mr. Andy Storch himself. Andy Storch in the house.
So excited to be back on here talking to you. And I'm so glad Heather is here. Just elevates our conversation. Next level.
We need some of that energy. And last but certainly not least, my go-to, my main man, Mr. Kevin Logan Jr. in the house.
What is up, y'all? It's beautiful to be with these beautiful people. Thank you.
I'm jealous of your hat.
Got a hat on now.
I love it.
Welcome.
It's the only one I got. I got to wear it.
I'm the only one not wearing a hat.
Why do you have to wear a hat? Oh, you don't have
to
wear a hat.
I just ran and got this one because you were wearing one, and I have this ETH hat, and it's just like I'm all up in
Ethereum
now. Ethereum. Heather likes.
Did you buy it or do you earn it? Like how do you get a hat like that?
I actually bought this hat. I was like,
did you buy it with ETH or did you buy it with like cash?
I bought it with dollars on Amazon the old-fashioned way, but one day it'll just come to me when I pay ETH in the metaverse for a digital hat, and then a real one will come.
I purchased, so just to give you some ideas of things that I've purchased recently. So I purchased obviously a bunch of NFTs, obviously with crypto, that's the way you do it. But I purchased our sponsorship to Miami NFT Week this Thursday for our new recruiting division, Probably Nothing Talent. I bought it with Bitcoin. I was like, that's cool. And I used my Bitcoin earnings for that. So I thought that was actually pretty cool. And another project where I have physical art too. But before we do that, let's go around the horn and do some proper introductions. And we will go ladies first to I don't know if it's my right or your left or which Brady Bunch configuration. Heather Parady, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Heather Parady. I co-host NFTs for newbies. I am reluctant to this space through and through. Before August of last year, I couldn't have told you what the blockchain was. And here I am, like I'm spending most of my day researching, learning, growing, and talking to a whole bunch of people about things we're learning about. So we're here for the newbies, and big fan of Andy Storch. He's been a great friend and somebody I go to with a lot of questions. And it's nice to meet you guys, Adam and Kevin.
Oh, it's awesome. And NFT for newbies, I'll link everyone up there. It is my knowledge source. It's something that I don't miss an episode. I mean, I missed the last one because I didn't listen to it yet. But yes, it's a go-to for anybody. And the reason the show is so great is because you're talking to folks because you're learning at the same time as them. You're not talking to them as an expert, talking down to them. And I think that's why one of the reasons of success. Absolutely no credit is given to Rich Cardona. I want to make sure that when he watches this, that I'm not giving any credit to him for any of the success. Let's go downstairs to my dude, my OG, my man, Andy Storch. Andy, welcome.
What is up? Thank you so much for having me on again. Andy Storch, author, consultant, coach, speaker, do a lot of work in the corporate space, focused a lot on career development, but also an investor and enthusiast in the NFT space, came in through Gary Vee and all of the work he did to educate people in his project last year, and eventually started my own podcast called My NFT Journey. And of course, I have also benefited greatly from being friends with Heather and Rich and so many other people in the NFT space who are always helping to educate each other as we try to figure all of this crazy stuff out. And one thing Heather left out, we'll add, is she's an amazing content creator.
Yes.
Her Instagram and TikTok and all the stuff she does online is fantastic. She's very creative, and I'm a big fan of Heather and Rich and of you, Adam, as well.
I love it. And we'll put a pin in this one, but I think, we'll get to in a second here, which makes this area, if we want to call it that, so special, is a community. And we're going to talk about that in a second, because we're going to separate real community from bullshit community. So we're going to put a pin in that from 1 second here. And Andy, again, I said it once before, I wish I listened to you back in May. I wish I listened to you in June. I wish I listened to you in July. I wish I bought my V-Friend. I would be a very happy and wealthy man right now, because I probably would have bought 2 of them. But anyway, that's for me to think about every night before I go to sleep, and cry about it. But last but not least, he is my alpha, my main dog, Mr. Kevin Logan Jr. Welcome officially to a live stream of you and I talking all day long on video chat.
It's the first. I know we normally just do this one-on-one. Co-founder of Probably Nothing Talent, director of recruiting for my man up here's NHP Talent Group, father to 2 awesome boys, husband to my queen. I live, love, and breathe blockchain, crypto, and NFTs. I'm a recovering degen that's just trying to figure my way out. And funnily, the reason that I got into my favorite NFT project in the world, Deadheads, because of NFT for Newbies.
What?
I did not know that.
Cool.
And ever since then, let me just real quick, I'd be remiss. I've heard about 30 episodes now. There is no other resource out there that is a better adoption for somebody that does not understand blockchain, crypto, NFTs, metaverse,
And that
show.
And that is a great segue, Kevin, because I think, and I mentioned this before. One of the main reason that I didn't purchase a Gary V friend in the beginning when I had Alpha, and everyone's going to yell at me in the comments here, is not because I didn't believe in Gary. And it's not because I didn't have the money. It's because I didn't know anything at the time. And for me, it was an uneducated purchase, and that's not something I normally do. I mean, it's something I really do now, but with a little bit more information. But I think there's a lot of hesitation out there, and that's why Heather's show and Rich and Andy's show are so awesome, because they speak to people who don't really know what's going on. So Heather, like when you're having conversations with your friends who are like, Heather, what's this podcast you're doing? What are NFTs? Like, why are people spending $375,000 on a JPEG of a trippy looking ape?
Yeah.
What do you tell them?
Yeah. And, rightfully so. I think that's a valid question. I mean, I think people should be asking that question. I mean, like, come on, it doesn't really make sense. I think what I've discovered over the past few months, because I went into it thinking the same thing. I mean, I flip things too fast. I mean, You're saying, Adam, I wish I would have bought a Be-Free friend. At least you didn't buy one and then resell it like 2 weeks later and be like, "Woo, I'm balling." Woo,
That might have been a worse move. I think you're right on that. I would have been more upset at myself if I did that, right?
Yeah. But, as we've learned, it's really about the underlying technology of NFTs. That's such a game changer for all of us as business owners, as leaders. And so, yes, there is the collection side of, I'm interested in NFTs as a collector. Right. But what I'm more interested in, and what I think the bigger picture is here, is what do NFTs represent, and how is that going to shift consumer behavior? What does that mean for us as business owners of rethinking value? And to your point earlier, like community 100%. Building, and just this whole idea of Web3. And I'll end with this. Someone told me the other day on a call that was fascinating. It was a listener, and she said, man, I wish before researching what is an NFT, I would have first asked myself the question, what is Web3? And I said, that's what we're here for. You have to scale.
That's a great point too, because when I explain it to people, and I'm a total noob compared to you three here, is it's not just the NFTs. Let's ladder it back up to the 30,000 foot view, and we're talking real time future. This is the same things that were happening when the AOLs were coming out, when we went from Prodigy to AOL. This is just technological evolution. This isn't a fad. Andy, when someone says NFTs are a fad, how do you address that?
Well, I bring up some of the things that we've all learned in different ways, in that I think this is a revolution. I think this is a paradigm shift in the way the world is going to work. And I'm seeing it picked up in so many different places, so many companies on board, coming on board, that there absolutely is a bit of a bubble. There are going to be a lot of things happening now that are going to go away. They're going to disappear. Doesn't mean everything's going to last forever. I explain, similar to, Gary Vee talks about this all the time, that it's similar to the dot-com boom. I think we're in 1997 right? There's a lot of people are going to think this or say this is a fad. There's going to be a lot of things that we're looking at right now. They're going to disappear, but the internet, is here to stay. I don't think any of us could go through a day or imagine going through a day right now without leveraging the internet in some way,
No way.
right? Social media, podcast, the work we do, watching Netflix, playing games, whatever it is, right? And I think it's going to be that way in 20 years with Web3. Everything's going to be on the blockchain. Now, it might look completely different from the way it does today, but everything is going that way. And so I think it's worth looking at, worth studying, worth paying attention to.
Right. And Andy, to say you're bullish on NFTs would be an understatement. And I'm not going to go into the particulars of some of our very private conversations of your investments and investment strategies. But generally speaking, I mean, you put a lot, let's call it what it is. You put a lot of financial resources into purchasing NFTs. What is your thought process and mindset when you evaluate a project? Well, and I'm going to ask Kevin the same question too. Give you a second to think about that, Kevin.
Yeah. First of all, I mean, this is a risky space to be in, right?
It's speculative at the least. It's right. I don't mean to jump on you, but I mean, we see people getting shit stolen all the time. I saw a major one the other day, like $1.7 million worth of NFTs from someone's, hot wallet,
Yeah. I mean, it's speculation. I think of it as investing, but it's a risky place to be. We're in the Wild West. Security is really important. You got to have your wits about you. Projects go up and down on the daily. And I think you got to have a stomach for it first and foremost. And then, the second thing is that I'm thinking more long-term. I know some people who do really well flipping, not my thing. Right? Yeah. Day trading on it, which you can do if you're paying attention 24/7 to everything going on in Discord.
And you also have to pay attention to the value of the crypto too. That's a big play in the game, in the flipping game too. That's a huge component. You have to monitor multiple facets, multiple factors.
Yeah, but all four of us here are running businesses. All four of us have families, have kids. I think we have 2 each, right? And so we have other things to pay attention to besides Discord all the time. So I'm thinking more long term. I've got caught up in FOMO and excitement on several things in the past, but I've kind of narrowed things down now to if I really know who the founders are and what they're doing, and I can really understand the vision and it's a thing that I'm interested in, then I'm interested in investing in that. And I understand why it needs to be an NFT. I'm interested in investing in that. The other thing I'd add to that too, that long-term thing, is my wife and I have had discussions about how do we get aligned on what our time horizon is and our vision for why we're investing this and if and when we may be pulling it out versus something like VFriends. And I'm like, I want to hold this forever. I don't ever want to sell, because my nightmare is I'll sell it and then it goes up, right?
Yeah, right. Believe me. And I am not missing the boat. I'm stocking up on my book game tokens, but we'll get to the whole Gary Vee project. Why? And Gary Vee says something so interesting, Kevin, which I would like to get your thoughts on. Gary Vee and other people say, listen, 99% of these projects will not be here in a year or two from now. They're going to fail. There's a huge cash grab. If it smells funky, if it smells like a cash grab, if it looks like a cash grab, if they say their roadmap and you're looking at their roadmap, and we'll talk about the definition of roadmap in a second, it's really like community build, utility, and you're not seeing shit on it. I would keep an eye on that. So Kevin, you're astute, another understatement there. You've opened up my eyes to not just the world of NFTs, but thinking in a bigger global scale, how you think of the economics and the politics behind Web3. How do you apply that knowledge when you're evaluating specifically NFT projects? Because that's what we're talking about today.
So if I could actually blend your first question with this.
Blending. They're blending.
I think the barrier to entry is one that is technologically based. And so many people come into it thinking this is just a technological story. And I'm here to tell you it's not. It's a social story. It's a political story. It's an economic story. It's a financial story. It's a cultural story, right? And we all have our place within this, and in different facets in different places. There's different verticals that we can all go. You don't have to be a Solidity developer to inhabit this space. You can have an idea about culture, about society, and blockchain has an answer for it. I promise. It's here to deconstruct the world that you know, to make it a better place, to make us all owners and empower us, the users, and not the corporations. So I just want to clear that in terms of the barrier for entry. That don't feel such a barrier. It's not. It's all of us. We're all a part of the blockchain. It's just software. Yep. To your other point, to what Andy was saying, I invest in people and communities. When I see NFT projects that are going to stand the test of time, you can talk about utility and roadmap and words on paper all day, but I like to see blood, sweat, and tears. I like to see, again, I'll go back to my deadheads, Tempo and Jeremy Jensen. They're out there. They are creating a space and a narrative.
Did we meet them, Andy? We met them, right?
Yeah, for their NFT owners to create. And I just said this morning, you know, if you put words on a piece of paper, you are a creator. You make creations. So this is that space for you as an owner in NFT and IP to let your mind go. And so if you invest in people and communities that actually care about the product, like sincerely, and the people, you'll notice it within the community because they show up. They don't just, they're not just there for mints. They're there always. And so those are the people I invest in. Those are the projects I invest in.
Yeah, I love it. Heather, we talk a lot about community, and it's become a buzzword. It's almost like you must have that word if you're launching an NFT project. I mean, shit, what kind of NFT project doesn't have a community? Who the hell would do anything like that? How do you define community in this NFT land, and how do you evaluate the quality of a community in a project?
Great questions. I think the popular thing right now people are saying was Web 2 is about audience building. Web 3 is about community building. And we can say that all day long, put it on a t-shirt and it sounds cute. But the question I've been asking myself is, what does that mean? Because we've been conditioned as content creators to think along the lines of audience building. And even, just a couple hours ago, I was working on a community building plan with somebody, and I was noticing some of my own recommendations. I was like, this is Web 2, this is audience building. And I've been programmed to think that. And so that's not inherently bad, but I think we need to go into community building with way more curiosity and actually, rethinking again to Kevin's point, what does ownership actually look like? How do people actually participate and have a say? How do they not just consume what you're giving, but actually have an authority and a voice? And again, these are cute concepts, but what does that actually look in application? And as far as evaluating communities, to your point, your question to Andy, about just looking at projects in general, I think established businesses and communities prior is what I really pay attention to. Track records. Community isn't something that's built overnight. Audience can be, not community. Community is trust, building trust. I mean, I've known Andy for 6 months now, and we have a little bit of trust together because we've known each other, but it's going to take a couple of years to fully trust each other and to really become friends and stuff. And you think about that. Well,
accelerate that. I'll give you a word of advice on that one from me. You don't know me that well, but if Rich and I know each other well, Rich, Andy, and I know each other well, I would accelerate that with Andy. There's my pro tip for today.
Take it to the next level.
Sure, but it's still borrowed trust. It's
Correct,
still you've built trust with
trust.
Someone else and I'm able to translate that. I'm saying like
not always
starting
de
off
facto.
Fresh, Paul down the road who I've never heard of before, nobody's friends with or whatever, it's going to take a while. And so I think that's an implication, bringing it into community. I don't think it's a Discord number. I don't think it's even engagement because some of that can be fabricated.
Correct.
I think I have more question marks around community than periods because we're still figuring out what that means.
No, that's a good one too. Andy, how do you manage the consumption of information that's out there? Because I think that is one of the most overwhelming things. I mean, I myself have narrowed my approach is I said, listen, I'm only going to focus on a couple of key projects right here so I could learn. The Peter Tunney Money experience, which I'll talk about in a little bit, getting myself prepared for V2, involving myself in that Discord. And when I can, spending some time in the Deadheads community as well there too. And even those three, when I dedicate, we'll call it maybe an hour total, a few minutes here and there each day, I feel like I'm missing everything. I'm not part of it.
Right.
How the hell? I mean, you have a lot. I mean, how many? Yeah. Not how many NFTs you have. How many collections do you think you're a part of roughly?
That's an interesting question. I probably have, 140 NFTs and probably 25 different collections or something. I'm not really sure. So but I would say there's probably 10 that I'm like seriously invested in and really care about. Right. And
what's your approach and your daily strategy for keeping yourself informed, about those communities, and then on the macro level about this entire universe?
Yeah. So I don't have the bandwidth like we talked about to be keeping up with everything that's going on. And like many people, I get overwhelmed when I go into Discord, which is where everything is supposed to be, right? And I know a lot of people get a little fed up with Discord. It's too much for me. I figured out some ways to kind of manage and look at the things I want to look at. I think everybody, for this, it comes down to personal style, right? If you're like an introvert, cerebral, like someone who likes to just sit in quiet and study, maybe like you dedicate an hour a day to like go through the bookmark things that you want to look through. For me, I'm very social. I rely on a network to know what's going on. So it's about developing friendships in different places and like having people that can kind of keep you up to date on what's what in different worlds. So as Heather knows, I have a WhatsApp group with a few friends in the NFT space who kind of know what's going on. I check in on Twitter on things that are going on in different areas. I try to find my experts that I can rely on in different areas. In fact, I keep up with everything in VFriends and then a little bit on a couple other projects like Boss Beauties and World of Women that I'm heavily invested in. And then like, for instance, I've invested quite a bit in impact theory, which is created by Tom Bilyeu. Heather was actually alluding to him or someone like him who has a track record in business, right? As a successful entrepreneur who's taking that over to NFT world. But for whatever reason, I haven't kept up with what's going on, but I realized, hey, Heather's husband, Brian, actually is pretty active in following everything that's going on there. So I messaged him the other day and I'm like, hey, can you just let me know like what is going on when big things happen?
So let's just pause that. Kev, I'll get to in a second here because that was my first ever NFT I purchased was an impact theory token. And it was actually a good experience because as we know, kind of hit some bumps in the road there. Andy, high level, what's happening there? And talk about what Tom did, which was really fascinating and showed his commitment and that trust factor that Heather was referring to.
Sure. And by the way, shout out Heather and Rich both flew out to LA and did an interview with Tom Bilyeu in person the other day for the NFTs for Newbies podcast. Great interview. Highly recommend it.
And he actually addresses this question on the show.
And he addressed this a little bit as well. So I was kind of following along. I got an impact theory at the beginning. I kind of been a casual fan of his for a long time, but knew that, hey, he's got a strong track record. This is going to be a great project. He did an interesting thing with the launch where you could buy in early at a high price or later at a low price. And the price of the floor of the NFT has mostly been hanging around that low price since it launched several months ago. And some people started to get really upset about that. People have low, little patience in this world. Even I do as well sometimes. And so there were a couple people who really raised a stink and started demanding a refund. This is really interesting. And it was interesting for all of us.
Yeah.
Right. I know. And in the NFT
30
world,
day. Come on. You could get your shit stolen in 2 seconds. You're asking for a refund?
I know. But he got
what is this,
it.
Target? Come on. Yeah.
And the other, I think all of us are also very interested, fascinated by leadership and styles of leadership and to see how Tom stepped up in that space and started listening to everybody's feedback and eventually offered a couple different options and refunds. And some people took it. I didn't. I know most of us didn't. And we're just kind of hanging on to see he's building this long-term thing. But he came and listened to the community and listened to feedback and said, okay, if you don't want to be here and you bought at a higher price, here, you can have your money back. I don't need it. I don't need you here. And we're going to move forward.
That's smart. Money where his mouth is. The podcast is brought to you in partnership with Vincere, the recruitment operating system, the all-in-one tech platform purposely built for recruitment and staffing to unify your front, middle, and back office operations. Vincere is designed by recruiters for recruiters. Both the company and the platform are the unique creations of successful recruiters who sold their business, saw a need for a better recruitment tech, and made it happen. And if you're looking to upgrade your recruitment tech and give your recruiters a new modern operating system, visit vincere.io/podcast. That's vincere.io/POZCAST for an exclusive offer. Thanks. Kevin, you are I don't even know how you do it, man. You manage a business, 2 kids, you're an absolute kick-ass recruiter, and somehow you're still consuming all this content in a way where you're able to, regurgitate it back to simple folk like me where I could understand it. How do you consume your content? Where do you get it from? Let's pull back the curtain here. Let's open the kimono.
Where am I? I'm on Twitter. I'm on crypto Twitter. I'm in Discords. I'm on YouTube. I'm on GitHub. I know. I'm a recruiter. I am on WhatsApp. I'm on separate side chats with bigger groups. So to that end, right? It's exactly what Andy said. I do it in a way that I build relationships with people and communities so that I can quickly inform myself on what's been happening that I've missed. So I'm very vocal when I get into communities. I'm not afraid to talk, say my opinion, reach out, ask people their questions. I'm a highly curious person. If you're a highly curious person, you will do very well in this space. I ask a lot of questions to receive a lot of answers. I don't think anybody should be labeling themselves an expert. I feel like everybody should be generally a newbie. Like
it's like a virgin being an expert in sex. You can't be doing that right now.
Your resume says 5 years experience developing on Solidity. I'm going to ask you if your name is Vitalik Buterin. So please don't.
Yeah. So a little inside joke you got going there. Those that know, if you know.
But
you know.
So for me, I'm somebody that likes to keep my perspectives fresh. I do like to be in a lot of spaces. I can consume a lot of information and distill it in a way that makes sense. I'm a researcher. I provide insights, so that all makes sense to me. So to some people, I can totally understand how it's overwhelming, but to me, it's everything I love about this space. I actually love the abundance of information because I love consuming it, and I love being able to have my own thought process and then distill that back.
Well, that's what's interesting too, because is being able to absorb, listen, and learn, and then apply your own perspective too. And everyone has a different threshold on saying like go, no go on different types of information.
But can I say one thing to that?
Sure.
The only reason why is because I built up a solid foundation of understanding this space first. So I think it's really hard to just jump in there and do all what I just said from jump. First, you really need you need to watch like a 2-hour like blockchain YouTube video or something, or you need to go to NFT for Newbies.
Just go to NFT for Newbies.
Kevin, go to NFT for Newbies.
But Kevin, the great thing about the NFT space that I think we all love is that in general, I think I find people to be very friendly and helpful and caring. You can go into any Discord and ask the questions and be like, hey, I have no idea what's going on. What's up? And people like rarely is someone going to come in shaming you like, oh, I can't believe you don't understand what this is. Everybody's all about educating, because as we educate more people come into the space, and the whole space becomes in general, right, rising tides, and we all become more successful. That's kind of the idea. So I'm never afraid of asking dumb questions or coming in and being like, hey, I have not been in Discord. I haven't been paying attention to a while. Like, what is going on? Someone explain it to me. And someone always jumps in and does.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to an audience question right here. Let's go to Christina. Let's let that pop up here. Whoever wants to field this one. She's asking, how does NFT compare in long-term value versus altcoins? I think this is more of an opinion versus fact, because we don't have long time information and data yet.
How much data do we have?
Who wants to jump in on this one? Open floor, popcorn.
I mean, altcoins, everything is on the blockchain, and we're all talking blockchain. So, if you're talking long-term value, it's the same thing. I follow the developers. So if we're talking blockchain, it's about the developers, the development team. That's when GitHub matters. That's when you got to see how many developers, what are they developing? What projects are they working on? So when it comes to long-term value, I want to be with the teams that had success in Web 2, migrated over to Web 3, and are now building cool things. So there are some altcoins I see with that, and there are some NFTs I see with that. Bitcoin. Exactly. See the teams behind them. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to follow the money. You got to follow the developers. That's this space in terms of Web 2 and Web 3. That hasn't changed much yet. All right.
So just for the audience here, right? The folks on my panel here it's funny enough. I mean, these are not newbies. They started as newbies, and this is pretty high level conversation here. Heather, you're the go-to expert here when it comes to newbies. If my dad now is like, hey, Adam, I really don't understand the new name of your company, Probably Nothing Talent. And I snicker and laugh at him. I go, it's because you're not supposed to, Dad. And he kind of laughs at it. But for newbies out there, what's like a good approach if I'm saying like, hey, listen, I want to dip my toes in the water. And like, just like for me, I learned by trying. And as I picked a couple of projects and I learned by getting involved with that, what advice would you give to a newbie out there who wants to dip their toes in the water?
I think going back to what that listener told me about researching what Web3 means and implications of decentralization, blockchain, smart contracts, we get DM'd daily. What do you think about this project? What do you think about that? And I'm like, I have no idea, because there's a million of them. And if you jump down that rabbit hole, somebody said earlier, likely you're probably going to lose a lot of money, which is okay. I think it's okay losing a little bit, because then you learn and grow. But again, I think NFTs is a great way drug to a bigger conversation. So start with understanding Web3 first, and then ask yourself the question, what am I interested in becoming? Am I interested in becoming a collector? Am I someone who wants to flip projects, or am I somebody who's interested in the underlying technology and the implications of that as a business owner or creative myself? Know where you're coming from, and then seek information from that.
Yeah, but how do you go about finding a project? I mean, would you recommend someone going on OpenSea, looking at the discovery, maybe first finding an art that appeals? Like, why does this like 8-bit freaking what do you call it, crypto
Heather and I are
slug
both
get my attention?
laughing. Heather and I are both laughing because that's like going to eBay and saying like I'm going to buy my first thing, right? Because there's just millions.
Yeah, like where do you start? Like, how do you even go there? Do you take a tip from a friend? Do you like how do you even like have a starting point?
Again, when people ask, what should I invest in? If you're asking that question, you shouldn't be investing in anything. If you're looking for a project to invest in, I don't think you should be investing in one, because if you start learning and educating yourself, you're naturally going to come across things that interest you and then make the decision. If I just have money in hand, I'm like, oh, let me go ahead and give it to somebody. You know what I mean? Like, that's a cool, privileged place to be, but it's likely you're probably going to lose all that money, because instead of saying, what project should I invest in? You need to be asking yourself, what do I not understand about this space first and foremost. I don't invest in a ton.
I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, I agree with the sentiment. I know what you're saying, Heather. I think people can get to a point where they're like, okay, I've listened to, say, all the episodes of your podcast and my podcast or whatever. I've done research. I kind of understand what's going on. I'm ready to dip my toe in the water because my learning style is to be in it, right? And I've had people DM me as well and say like, hey, I'm ready to dip my toe in. I have $500. What should I buy, right? And then that's the next question is like, okay, if you have the money, how do you decide what to invest in?
Okay.
And that's the wide open thing, right? That's where I say like, okay, get on Twitter, connect with people that you know, find somebody you know that's like, hey, I really love this thing.
That's not a newbie though. That's not a newbie. I've had people ask me, what does minting mean and what should I invest in, all in the same question.
That's super noob.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And I think going back to it, it's another reason too, because I didn't understand the process with the whole Gary V, because that was literally day one of my introduction into this world. And I was like, shit, I wish that was my day, 150. I would have been all over it. Right. I would have been all over it. I would have missed the boat on that one. But let's talk about the art for a moment here. And actually, let me take a step back. The headline that people see, you see, the mergers out there of the two biggest ones, the apes and the punks out there. And then you take a look at the art, and anyone who's not in this space goes, who the fuck is paying $330,000 for this trippy looking ape? And then you see Madonna just bought one for $400K. And you're like, all right, what is the deal behind it? And what they've done is they've created a pretty exclusive community and the utility behind it. I would love for somebody to jump in and just talk about what they've done with the apes and, your thoughts. Are these just whales pumping whales here? What's going on here?
It's a collectible, right? And we know, like, one of the beautiful things about the blockchain is that you have that transparent information to know how many are out there, how many are available. And we know there's only 10,000 CryptoPunks. We know there's only 10,000 Bored Apes. And then beyond that, like, art is art, right? And like, it's eye of the beholder, and the market has determined like Bored Ape and CryptoPunks are the premier things to hold. And at some point you see that tipping point where celebrities start getting in. I remember when Steph Curry bought a Bored Ape, and then Jimmy Fallon bought a Bored Ape and changed his profile. And you're like, okay, this is the celebrity thing. Paris Hilton has one, is talking about it on Jimmy Kimmel's show. Like, this is the thing to have. It's going to kind of cement it as this really expensive thing. It's really just like, for me, I think it's like, it's something to show off, right? That like, look, I'm rich.
It's a status symbol, right? It's a status symbol, but does that make it
investment, right? More than like a Lamborghini, that's a status symbol that probably goes down in value over time. I think, something like this could continue to go up in value over time.
Yeah, but Kevin, how do folks wrap their heads around that, right? And I think, who was it that told me that somebody was doing an NFT project where they actually gave away their Lamborghini? Right, in exchange for NFT, like people are like, how do you value a digital asset versus a physical asset? And you can say, hey, listen, it's the same thing with stocks, but stocks are backed up typically by a company with assets. I think that's a key difference here. How would you say?
I think of it as NFT. NFTs are cultural assets. That's what they are. And value is subjective. And that's kind of it, right? You pay $330K because you can afford to pay $330K, and that gives you the cultural asset and the inclusion into a community that you want to be included in because you like the culture. That's generally all NFTs are.
Now, all what it is.
Because even the utility that they build into it, that's all subjective. Do you care if you can be invited to Bay Sea parties? Do you care if you can go on the Bay Sea yacht? Well, that's subjective. If that's valuable to you, then it's worth $350,000 to you, Madonna, or whatever it is. Man. But it's not to me. So that's subjective. So for me, I have to find things that are valuable to me subjectively, understanding that there's just a cultural asset that I want to be a part of. So it's just a new way to look at art. I mean, that's how art's essentially been. You just kept it in your house, not as a PFP. You had everybody come to your house and talk about it, and it's part of the culture. And it's just.
And you said it's like stocks are backed up with assets, right? But Amazon right now has a market cap of $1.7 trillion. They don't have $1.7 trillion in assets, not even close to that, right? If you buy stock in Amazon at $3,300 a share, you're betting on the future that Amazon is going to continue to grow. If they went bankrupt today, they wouldn't have the assets to pay that out, right? That's sort of goodwill towards the future.
Yeah.
And so actually to that end,
go for it.
Exactly. In tech companies, you are paying for the potential of 30 years from now, it being that. So that's the same thing with NFTs. People and communities, because you are investing in what you think will grow. It's that simple.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Let's talk about the money, the pump and dumps, the pumping up the market too. I think I used that term the wrong way, but you guys know what I'm saying here. Heather, I mean, these people, are they pumping up their own projects with these poker chips? It's not real money. Is that dangerous for common folks out there that have to actually put real cash in to start? And they just parlaying their investments and hey, I'm buying this. I'm going to hype this one up. That way make it more valuable. And I mean, what's going on with that? What's your perspective?
Again, that's just another reason to use caution. And I don't mean to, I love this space and I don't mean to be negative at it at all and discourage people from investing and taking their time. I've just seen so many people lose a lot of money because they're not paying attention. There's a lot, and I don't think everything's intentional. I mean, I know we hear a lot about rug pulls and people, doing things intentionally. Another Adam on LinkedIn, he had an incredible post about how really a lot of failed projects is incompetence. It's not ill intent. And I tend to agree with that. I think, we should replace NFT project with almost NFT business.
And Tom talked about that in your interview on NFTs for newbies, right? The importance of that.
The business element behind it. And Kevin and I see this all the time now as we worked from a biz dev perspective with these newly formed companies, right? They are not organizations. They don't have the business savvy sense. They move too quickly. They did things and they're kind of working backwards, but it kind of works with this whole space is, building this plane as you fly it. Right.
Well, that's the being careful, right? Like we've grown up on social media. We've grown up on ads. We've grown up on instantaneous gratification. Thank you. Geez. So, NFTs are very much a buy the rumor and sell the news. It's like it's a very headline rich space. Headline, like $400,000 base C. Now you're like FOMO. And so, that because of the way that we've grown up and that's worked for so. Sorry, there's a
small
because we've grown up that way and we've been, that's how we've done for so long. You really have to step back and try anew. And you really have to be patient, like very patient with this space. So as Heather's saying,
patience.
I love this space FOMO. And I'm not trying to say anything bad.
A lot of FOMO.
But there is a barrier to entry and that is on purpose. And you should be aware of that. And you have to educate yourself or you are going to get lost in the sauce. I purposely put money into NFT projects that I could lose. Not very much, just to see just to mint, just to be a part of the community, just get little. So, get involved a little, get your hands dirty, just little, like nib on it. And then that way you learn little by little until, you feel like it's necessary to go and then make the big jump.
That's interesting too, Andy. I mean, we've had some really deep personal conversations about your investment here. How do you manage the FOMO? I just buy it. I don't even have the FOMO. I just buy whatever it is.
FOMO is real.
It is real in this space, right?
I mean, it is in this space. Like, forget the scams and the rug pulls. There's a lot of that too. But there's also just, everybody's jumping into this thing. I need to jump in too so I don't miss it. And then you get in at the high, which I've done, right? And you watch it fall. That's a big risk in this space. And I like that Kevin was talking about patience. A lot of times people ask like, what are a couple of things that people need to know coming into this space? Patience. Heather's great at this. Heather and Rich both, I think, like there's as deep as into the space they are. They're not jumping on every project like I am. And I've really toned that down as well.
By the way, Andy only has one shirt. He has one shirt in his wardrobe because he's had to sell everything that he has. He has one shirt, one towel, one pair of socks.
That's right. It's all a bet. It's a gamble on the future. It's a gamble, but you really have to like, I remember having a moment a few months ago where I was like, okay, I'm going to stop and I'm only going to invest in something that if like I understand it and I care about it. Because my good friend Bennett, who's gotten me into a lot of different things, he's on the Deadheads team. I think all of us have Deadheads. Right? You mentioned that earlier. Shout out to Bennett Phillips, who's an expert in this space. He was mentoring this project that was all about entertainment and like filmmaking and stuff. And it was like very promising. And I looked at it and I was like, I should probably jump in too. And then I went, I'm not interested in this space at all. This is not my thing. So I'm just going to back away from it and let everybody have their thing. There's going to be plenty of other opportunities, and I'll stick with the things that I believe in.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love it. And I speak from my own experience too. There's a project that Kevin got to see firsthand, literally, Peter Tunney. So if anybody doesn't know Peter Tunney, he literally is the modern day Andy Warhol of our generation. He has a tremendous gallery in the Wynwood walls in Miami, in the Wynwood area. He also has a gallery here in New York. He's prolific. He's absolutely incredible. And his whole story, and I'll spare you guys the details here, but when he was a young artist coming up in New York City, he would make his own. He was a magician, right? And an artist. So he would kind of make his own money. His dad gave him this money kit for his birthday, printing fake money. And then he parlayed that as an artist and he turned it into Tunney money, which were these giant wood bricks of money. And he would use it around New York City at the diners and the restaurants. And they would take it as money because they knew he was a growing artist. Very similar in kind of betting on this NFT space, right? So now you fast forward to 2022. He launches the Tunney Money Project, which are 10,000 coins of different denominations in Tunney money. Then when we minted, they turned into various denominations at different values there. But he also, for the alpha, which are 100 of us, which I jumped on, I was able to get a physical Peter Tunney art. I have an original Peter Tunney, one of one, design, hand signed to me, Peter Tunney giant. And Kevin saw me pick it out. And it brought a passion. I have photos of my daughter with Peter Tunney. I have photos of my daughter from 2 years ago in his gallery in Wynwood. So for me, this brought it all together. And I went deep into this community. I'm involved with them, going down to Miami on Thursday. We have a show there too. And for me, it kind of brought it all together. The physical art, the community, and the NFT space. And for me, that is my alpha and something that I'm super excited about. But not everybody has that opportunity to do it, or the access.
Yeah.
I would love to add to that.
Sure.
That's because I saw that passion and I did.
You saw it, you were there.
Like that, I gotta say, like sincerely, that made it a different reel to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so to that point, I'm a creator. I love creating things. And that's what, again, NFTs do. They build you, they give you a narrative. And if you have the IP for you to do your own thing. So, when you see that joy out of what an NFT can do, that's that childlike feeling. I can't explain to people how I have this childlike curiosity and interest in feeling all the time when I'm learning about this and doing this stuff to this end. So we have this, we're part of Deadheads. We've talked about a lot. I've written a short story for Deadheads. You
can say it, give it away.
I have a merch line coming out. I am working with the team on some cool other things. My creative, I have goosebumps right now talking about this. All my childlike, all these things I want to do as a child, but just never, I'm doing them now. And that's an opportunity that when you find a project that you believe in like that, I don't know what's going to happen to you, but I sure as hell didn't know this would happen to me. And again, I have goosebumps saying this because that's how deeply I believe and feel. And to my kids, I have, to give that to them and they get to see my joy and we get to share in that. Like I'm going
to parlay on that for 1 second before I go to Heather on this one. So the last trip, Thursday will be my 5th time to Miami since December. But last trip, I took my daughter to the Peter Tunney in the middle of Wynwood Walls. He had a huge launch project for it in the middle of the walls. My daughter, 10 years old, was the only person there under the age of 19. And Peter Tunney himself, the second I got there, took my daughter by the hand, and he had all these magic tricks set up all over the place and filled her goodie bag and showed her how to do each one of the magic tricks. I mean, you talk about bringing a Project 360 in real life. I mean, I have goosebumps thinking about that experience. Like, this is real stuff here. Let's go to the headline. The name of the show right here are breaking down the myths here. Heather, we're going to go around the horn. Everyone's going to get this question as we bring it home at the end of the show. Heather, what is the number one biggest myth in NFT land right now?
Number one biggest NFT myth.
I mean, you had to know it's coming. It's the name of the freaking show. Come on.
Forgot
my
about
first
that.
podcast.
I would say that the NFT conversation is limited to these projects we've been talking about for the past few minutes. I think there's a bigger conversation to be had here of like what this can mean for small businesses and apps and different small little creative ways to use this technology. It'd be a broader conversation, I think.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Andy Storch.
Oh, there's so many things. I think when it comes to general population, a couple are, one is that, these are just pictures. And of course you can right click and save. That was a lot of people were talking about that. And you could do that with anything, right? I could take a picture of your house and say, oh, this is mine. Right. So that's kind of been, I think, demyth. But the important thing, the answer to that is looking at, well, it's on the blockchain. I can prove ownership. That's what's actually really beautiful about Web3 and the blockchain and where all this is going.
Transparency of it.
Right. The transparency of it, to really know. We've been talking about art, right? I was never really an art collector investor before this, but I always say, like, if you bought a print from a famous piece of art and they said, oh, there's only 1,000 of these, obviously you believe them, but what if there's not? How would you ever know? You'd have no way to know if they printed 10,000 instead. But on the blockchain, we know exactly how many there are. So it's just right click and save. And the other one is that this is a fad and it's going to go away. It's just something people are interested in right now, but it's not going to last. And I do think this is a sea change of where everything is going in our economy and the way we do business and ticketing and access and the way businesses raise money and nonprofits and all of this stuff. There's just so many possibilities.
Yeah, I love this. Kevin Logan Jr.
Yes.
KLJ for those close to him.
So I'll take it back to something I originally said. And the biggest myth I think that I hear from a lot of people I talk to is just they think it's a technological story and it's all about the technology. And I'll just go back. And then I'll say how I got into it really fast. Again, it's a social, political, economic, finance, cultural, and so on and so forth. And so when I just think about how I got into NFTs, it literally goes back to this. In 2008, my parents lost their home during the great financial crisis. In 2009, Bitcoin was created, and I read this white paper about a man who said that he could create this money that could be decentralized and would not have centralized powers. And and fair enough, to say I haven't followed it since then. Took like 6 years in between that again, but then it came back. And so my story into NFTs is because my parents lost their house and because Bitcoin was created and the blockchain. The blockchain has been around for a long time, but this is all back to the blockchain. And exactly as Andy said, literally what he just said, it's about ownership. It's about giving the power back to the user. And yeah.
Oh, that's powerful right there. Let's go a little alpha here, just to leave everyone here. Andy Storch, leave everyone with a little bit of alpha. What couple of projects are you kind of eyeballing right now? If you don't, whatever you feel like sharing, we don't want to give the farm away. But what space? I mean, bullish on V2.
I don't know if I have any like brand new, really cheap projects that I'm watching right now, like the hot tip of the really cheap buy-in, but a little bit more expensive. I'd say 3 that I'm definitely watching and I'm bullish on. Number 1, of course, is VFriends with Series 2 coming out. VCon happening in May. Series 2 coming out soon before that.
Check.
Supposedly at just under $1,000. I think that's probably. What's that?
I said I'm on it. Got it. Check.
Yeah. I think that's to really blow up. World of Women, which is a really hot,
can't afford to keep going.
Project. Just launched their derivative called Galaxy over the weekend. And right now the floor on those Galaxy, the original World of Women is around 10 ETH and the Galaxy is 1.5. The art is fantastic. The mission is fantastic. They're doing some really awesome things. And the other one that I'm really bullish on that I think is going to do big things is Boss Beauties, which is run by a really fantastic team that's been in this space for a long time on women's education and empowerment for young girls. And what they're creating and the partnerships they put together, and that floor is around 1.44 ETH right now. I think it has huge potential. Not financial advice, no idea where everything's going, but the common thread between these 3 projects is I strongly believe in the underlying mission of what the creators and the company is doing, not just like, oh, I'm going to bet on this piece of art.
I love it. And before we go to Kevin Logan on that, just to address Gabe's comment here, this is something that's really fascinating to There's a great podcaster, Buster Sher, out there who actually started doing NFTs of individual episodes. And that's something I've been thinking about too when I have the time, is how do I take each one of my episodes and work with my guest to provide access? Like if I put out an NFT of this specific episode, I said, whoever buys this one of one NFT is going to have, 1 hour a quarter with Heather, Rich, Andy, and Kevin here to pick their brains and shoot the shit with them. What would that be worth to you? Right. And think about other ways of utility behind the podcast there. Kevin and I are thinking of creative ways. The artwork that we already have 7-8 different versions of our Probably Nothing Talent logo. And we're thinking about ways to utilize those NFTs, not for a cash grab, but how do we make them valuable for a job seeker? How do we attach it to, say, career coaching, resume building, access to online seminars, training, events, like thinking out of the box about NFTs. And that's what excites me as about a creator.
Impact first.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a cash grab the other day that someone sent. I mean, you could smell it. I mean, if you have even a half decent bullshit.
What's his name? Floyd Mayweather, by chance? No.
No, Wiz Khalifa. I saw one coming up. It was interesting too. I mean, you see the cash grabs. You could smell them there.
Yeah.
Heather, what are you feeling these days?
I was literally sitting here with Andy talking. I'm like, yeah, you're saying all the ones I was going to say. V2, obviously, and those freaking book games. If anybody needs a book, let me know. Like,
I think Andy. Did I give you one, Kevin? I think Andy literally has 800,000 books.
No, DM Heather and Ryan bought more books
in
than
the DM.
V2, I'm interested in Galaxy. I was so funny that they had like this little countdown thing. They're like 9,000 left, and everybody, it was a Dutch auction, so everybody's waiting for it to get down, and they immediately sold. But we ended up getting a couple off OpenSea too. I really, I know there are sponsors, but the more I'm getting into deadheads, I'm just people smack talk them and say things. I'm getting kind of like aggressive.
They're
and I'm
creating
like,
real stuff. Yeah.
Wait. I
creating.
really love the creators there. I love their vision. They've executed like insanely in less than a year. What they've made is nuts. By the way, if you're looking for an established project and you feel like you haven't missed the boat, I got in Deadheads in August of 2021, and the price is still the same.
I accidentally minted 2 skulls, and I'm cool with it because I did it twice by accident. I'm like, all right, I got 2 of them.
So, but they're building cool stuff.
Yeah.
So, if I could answer that really fast, only because it's derivative of that.
Turn.
There are 4 really cool ones. So, I love media. I love the media plays that are happening. There's a music NFT called Royal. They just
we didn't get into the music part. How awesome this is.
I own a Nas song. What? Okay.
What?
That's insane. I cannot tell you how I'm the biggest fan of Nas. Cool. I had his first album, my first rap album. It's amazing. So Queensbridge. And there's another organization that does music NFTs called Opal. They're a really cool company. They're the only one that has gone through Securitized. They have an SNFT, have gone through the SEC, so that if later on these become securities, you're golden.
Money.
2 other cool ones are Cool Cats, which is another media play, kind of in the form of Deadheads. I think Mila Kunis and Chris Rock had.
Isn't that Stoner Cats?
You mean Stoner Cats?
I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Don't you mean Stoner Cats? Like
Stoner Cats, not Cool Cats. Excuse me. And then the other
Cool Cats, another great project, but that's a lot more expensive. I think their floor is 9 or 10 ETH.
It is. And then the other cool one that just came out and they just minted is Gimmicks. Another cool media play. It's a show. Because as Heather was saying, like, I love the Deadhead community. I'm fierce with it. I've gotten to know some of these other derivative communities as well, and they have some really awesome NFT projects happening on the media side.
This has been great. And listen, we could do this for hours here, especially if Rich was on. We'd have to drag this thing out even longer here. We know how he doesn't stop talking. And Rich, I hope you're good, and we'll catch up on that too. But let's, first and foremost, I want to thank everybody online for joining us. Everyone who's going to be listening to the replay, everyone who's going to be listening to this in a few weeks when it comes out as the audio podcast. It's called repurposing. That's the beauty of it. And spread the word out there. All 3 of my esteemed panelists here are a wealth of information. Make sure you follow them all. They all have, Kevin doesn't have a podcast, but make sure you follow him on Twitter and all the other spaces. Heather, where could folks find you? Where could they connect with you? Where could they learn more?
Yeah, find NFTs for Newbies wherever you listen to podcasts, nftsfornewbies.com. We have some free guides and some fun stuff over there.
Awesome. Good stuff, Heather. Thank you so much for joining me. I take you over, Rich, any day of the week. Andy Storch, where could folks find you, connect with you, learn more?
Agree with that. My NFT
We love you, Rich.
My NFT Journey is the podcast website, andystorch.com/NFT. And I'm on all the socials, especially on Twitter, talking NFTs. Andy Storch.
Kevin Logan Jr., bring us home.
On Twitter at BitMember, like gold member. On LinkedIn, that's where I mostly create content. And those are my 2 socials that I stick to, crypto, Twitter, and LinkedIn.
And if anybody is in the space looking to hire, looking for jobs in that space, please follow Kevin and I at Probably Nothing Talent. We are thrilled to launch this company. It is right now. It is the right time. Is all I think about all day long, just like Kevin. It's got our blood and our juices flowing, and I love it. I want to thank everyone on the panel here. Hang with me one moment here as I sign off. Everyone who's in the chat, thank you for joining us. Remember, you could all find out more at thepodcast.com. Follow us on all the social media channels. Remember, look out for each other, take care of each other, and catch us next week for another great episode of the podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Appreciate y'all.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To join the conversation, search the podcast on LinkedIn. And to catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepodcast.com.